Good afternoon, Sarah Gilbert, Agent 66 here to talk to you today about Asclepius, the god of healing through surgery. Asclepius was a very famous healing god. He was actually the son of Apollo, and we'll talk about his story a bit further through as I go through the slides. So let's get them started. So we can see here one of the sanctuaries to Asclepius. He was always shown as a very wise old guy with a beard and always held in great veneration. He worked with surgery to some degree. He worked with herbs to some degree, but he also helped people cut things out through what was happening in their dreams. And this was something that the Greeks were very keen on. There were a lot of dream healing temples set up in his name, and today a lot of people from Jung and Freud's work also work with dreams. Jung believed that the symbols that we see in our dreams help us to transform and grow. And I certainly believe that they're very important to us. So here we see some statues of Asclepius. One on the right, perhaps a little bit younger. It's attributed to Asclepius, but it seems to have the stone down in the bottom that I saw when I was at Delphi. So I'm not too sure that the one on the right isn't actually Apollo. But anyway, we'll go with what Theoi said. They're a very good website. This statue I actually saw for myself. I went to the healing temple at Epidurus it's the main one probably that's the best known from Asclepius. He also had a very famous one on the island of Kos. But this one's I'll show you on the map in a minute just where it is. But you can see this is the same statue looked at from front on and from above, and you can see his famous staff with the snake crawling up it. He was always associated with snakes. Snakes are very much about healing and transformation, and of course our Kundalini energy. So here we have him with his one of his best known daughters, Hygeia. He's often shown in pictures and statues with Hygeia, and she looked after all the snakes. She fed them. He worked with some special non-venomous snakes, and his temples had them slithering all over the place. They were part of the healing process, so people had to get on with it. Here we've got another engraving of Hygeia and Asclepius, and here we have a very nice one which has got a lot more detail in it. So you can see they were both very familiar with the snakes. Hygeia tended to be more of a carer of the snakes, whereas Asclepius used them very much in his healing process. So once again, you can see her there. There's a story about how he come across the healing powers of snakes. He found one when he was trying to cure someone who was fatally ill, and he killed the snake because it was crawling up his staff. And another snake sort of appeared, saw what had happened, and went off and came back with a leaf in its mouth. And it touched the other snake with this leaf, and the snake came alive again. So he was very intrigued to find out how well this leaf could work, and that was what he used, and he was said to have been able to take people back from being dead using this leaf. He was healing someone called Glaucus at the time. So his staff has one snake on it. The caducus, which is used as a medical symbol even today, which is shown down the bottom, came from Mercury originally, and that always had the two snakes on it. So we can see here he's very much considered to be associated with Orpheus, the constellation in the sky, which they're always bringing up with that 13th sign in the zodiac rubbish. And you can see there that it's only his feet that are down in the area which near the Sagittarius, which you can see Sagittarius over here on the left, and you can see the Scorpion of Scorpio on the right. So he's got a foot on the Scorpion, another one near the arrow down the bottom there. Okay, and here we've got we've got his snake and staff. So the main temple for him is here, over to the side. Here's Athens in Greece, and it's over in the Peloponnese Peninsula, and it's called Epidaurus. Very beautiful place, huge temple. You can see here, this is a mosaic floor showing his rod here too. So this is the kind of temple setup that they worked in. They had all the people come there, purify themselves, and then they had to sleep there for several nights until they actually had a dream, which was found to be meaningful. And then the priests work with them on translating that dream. And here we can see Asclepius with his rod in a sort of very Zeus-like pose. This is a famous painting which is showing some children that have been brought to one of his temples for healing. And you can see him here, just waiting to work on them with herbs and so on, and have the family around the children. Now here are some scenes from the temple itself. It's in quite good condition, and this is a sort of area that was set aside for dining and so on. Here we have the back of the actual Asclepion itself, and this is what remains of one of the front pillars. As you can see, there's some really interesting carving on this stone, and we can see an 8-pointed star engraved down there. This is the actual back of the temple, and if you look in here, we can see a couple of plaques on the wall, which I have some close-ups of. So one of them is showing Asclepius doing hands-on healing with Hygeia standing behind him. And this one here is showing her again, helping him by giving him the serpent that he's going to use in the healing. And there's the serpent there around the person as well. So she's got another one here, I think. All right, it's a very big temple, indeed. With it actually had an amphitheatre, and there's also a stadium, which we can see here. But let's go back to the mythology. So let's whiz back through these again and go back to the beginning and have a look at these pictures with the snake. The story of Asclepius' birth is quite an interesting one. He was said to be born by a woman called Coronis, and Apollo fell in love with her and had sex with her and got her pregnant with Asclepius. And she didn't want to become the wife of a god. She started to also take up a liaison with a guy called Ischurus and lived with him. And in those days, ravens were white, and a white raven came and told Apollo what was going on. And Apollo was really furious, and he took it out on the raven as well. He turned the raven black, and from that day on, ravens have always been black. But he asked his sister Artemis if she would kill this woman for him, because she'd insulted him gravely. And this took place just before the child was due to be born. So Artemis duly shot her, and she was put on her funeral pile. And at the last minute, Apollo had second thoughts and decided he wanted to see what this child of his was like. So he cut the child out of Coronis's stomach, and he took the child and gave him to the centaur Chiron, who was a well-known healer and mentor of heroes, and he gave him to Chiron to bring up. So Chiron brought him up with all the tools of healing that he knew himself, and he then went on to found his temples and work with all of those things. But after the incident with the snake, when he became able to bring people back to life, then Zeus became a bit concerned, because he was trying to make himself a bit too godlike. And his brother Hades or Poseidon, Hades or Pluto, from down in the underworld, got a bit concerned, because he thought there wouldn't be any dead people for him to look after if Asclepius went around healing them all, and bringing them all back from the dead. So Zeus decided to kill him with a thunderbolt. And the thunderbolt was manufactured for him by some children of the Cyclops, that came from the original liaison between Gaia and Uranus. And when Apollo killed the Cyclops, in rage at what had happened to his son, then Zeus decided to deify Asclepius and put him up as a constellation. And some people say that his mother was put up there with him too, in the constellation of Corvo, which is like a crow, because of the association with the ravens. He had several children. There was Podalirius and Machichon and Iaso, all male children, who all sort of went into the more surgery line of things. Then he had the natural cure from the girls that were born. His wife was called Epione, and the girls were called Aegli, which means radiance, Panacea, which is cure-all, and Hygeia, which is health. And all those things are things that we use today, and you'll notice they all come from the healing that comes from the sun, that comes from the vitality and the warmth of the sun, and us keeping healthy. So that it's rather more about health than healing in those names. There was a later grandson of Asclepius on Kos, who was called Hippocrates, and from him we get the Hippocratic oath that is still taken by doctors today. And doctors today still swear by Apollo the physician, and by Asclepius, and by Hygeia, and by Panacea, and by all the gods. So even though rational science decries all the myths and all the astrology and the gods and all those sorts of things, that oath is still used by the medical community. All right, so let's move along to the asteroid for Asclepius. So let's whiz through these. And Asclepius was one of the later asteroids to be discovered. It's a near-Earth asteroid of a type called an Apollo asteroid, and they go from inside the Earth's orbit right out sort of to crossing Mars's orbit. So they go they're very ecliptic and very erratic in their movement. And he was discovered by Henry Holt and Norman Thomas in America at the Palomar Observatory in 1989. And at that time, let's have a look for his. Let's have a look for what we have for him. And where is he? Oops. Let's go back. Here he is down here. So he looks a little bit like the glyph for Hygeia, but with just one circle at the bottom instead of two. And you can see that he's right with Apollo. Apollo is this one that looks like a triangle and a circle with an arrow through it. There's only about 7 degrees difference between them. And interestingly, Apollo's sister Artemis up the top here is much closer still. She's less than 2 degrees from making an opposition to Asclepius, and she's quite close to Hermes or Mercury, who of course was Apollo's brother. God, I hate when it does that. Go back. Sorry about this, Richard Computer. All right, so here we have, so he's a near-Earth object like Apollo. He's got an orbit of about 1 year around the Sun, so he's very, very fast-moving, and Apollo is 1.78 years, so he's nearly twice as quick as Apollo. So where is he now? He's in a very interesting position, which is why I chose Asclepius to talk about this month. On the 1st of April, he will be within 1 degree of Saturn, and Saturn is due to go retrograde in a few days following this. But what is also very significant is the pair of them are right close to the galactic center. And that's very significant for Saturn, because Saturn is going to go retrograde there, but Asclepius is right in there with it. And the galactic center is a black hole that's the center of our galaxy. It's near the Sagittarius arm, and it emits infrared energy. It pressures our subconscious mind and releases our learned behaviours and memories so that we can move forward. It's a bit like defragging a computer, if you like. We take out all the bits that aren't any use anymore so that there's more room for the new learnings to come in. And it works very strongly with our root chakras down at the bottom of our foundation. So it's very important. So anywhere that you have 26 to 27 degrees, or maybe even up to 28 of the mutable signs in your chart, so either Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces, they will of course be either making a conjunction or a opposition or a square to Asclepius and Saturn, and it will be a very interesting time for you at the moment and over in the next period, because the galactic center doesn't move very quickly. It only moves about 1 minute a year. So that if you've got those in your birth chart, they'll be operating in your life. But Asclepius, which is helping with healing, is there right at the moment. So let's move on to show you how you can find this. If you want to, I've shown you before, but if you're new, Serenu is a graphic ephemeris you can get for free online from this HTML at the top. And you can put in any time or your own birth time to find out where these things are for you. But if you want to know what's going on at any time, you can get a printout, and it prints out 100 of the things it considers most important. If you want it to focus on specific things, you can put up to 10 in here without going into the paid version. So 4581 is the number for Asclepius. 1862 is the number for Apollo, and 105 is the number for Artemis. But if there's anything else that you'd like to see, perhaps you might want to put Hygeia or some of the other daughters or the sons. You can look them up in the minor asteroids lists and find out where they are too. So once you've found where Asclepius is in your chart, you're going to look at what sign it's in. You're going to look at the houses or areas of life it's situated in. Is it conjunct or square in an angle? You know, sort of, is it conjunct or squaring or opposing your sun, moons and nodes? If it's within 2 degrees, very important. Within 8 degrees, you're going to feel it to some extent. So if we look at my birth chart for an example of this, we can see down the bottom here that I've got this great big stellium that's squaring my nodes across here. My node is at 8 degrees of Cancer. My Venus is at 4 degrees. So in all this area with between 4 degrees and 8 degrees, there are a plethora of asteroids, but Neptune is right in the middle of things there. So I've got Imhotep, who is another healing asteroid from Egypt. Of course, we've got Chiron there as well. Iris, the female messenger, Neptune, and then Arachne, who was the sister of the Minotaur and married by the god Dionysus. And next to her, we have Asclepius there at 8 degrees, so exactly squaring my nodes. So very important asteroid for me. And you can see there that my Jupiter, which also is included in this stellium, conjunct to Eos, the goddess of the dawn, is right, making a square to the galactic center. So very, very interesting. I'm going to wait to see what comes of this next month coming forward. I'm looking forward to a lot of additional healing to my nodal story. So that's all for me for today. Lovely to talk to you again, and hope to see you next month. Bye-bye.